Some people see a father. Others only see a suspicion. The cry of a baby cut through the late afternoon air as a man in a navy sweater stood beside a dark gray SUV, one hand steadying a stroller, the other adjusting a tiny blue blanket around his son. Cars rolled past in the parking lot of Brookhaven Plaza, their headlights beginning to glow in the fading light of a chilly November evening. Shopping bags rustled. Doors slammed. People hurried home. But near row C, time had suddenly slowed. Marcus Ellington moved with the practiced calm of a man who had done this 100 times. He folded the stroller with one smooth motion, lifted it into the trunk, then turned toward the back seat where 8-month-old Noah kicked softly in his car seat, cheeks rosy from the cold. "Almost home, buddy," Marcus said, smiling as he tightened the strap across the child's jacket. Noah answered with a small laugh, the kind only a parent could understand. 20 minutes earlier, Marcus had been standing in a courtroom downtown, listening to arguments about custody schedules, school transfers, and the quiet heartbreak of families trying to rebuild. Now he was here with diaper wipes, formula, and a stuffed giraffe tucked into one of the bags at his feet. The shift between judge and father was one he never took for granted. He reached into the passenger seat for a bottle warmer when he noticed someone staring. A woman near the cart return stood frozen, phone in hand, eyes narrowed. She glanced from Marcus to the baby, then back again. Marcus had seen that look before. It was never curiosity. It was calculation. He offered a polite nod and returned to his son. The woman did not nod back. Instead, she stepped aside, lifted her phone, and spoke in a low, urgent voice. Marcus sighed quietly. He checked Noah's buckle one more time and closed the rear door with care. The wind moved through the lot, carrying the smell of coffee from a nearby cafe and the distant hum of traffic from Route 9. Then came the sound no parent wants near their child. Tires turning sharply, engine stopping fast, a door opening with authority. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." Marcus turned slowly. A uniformed officer was already approaching, hand raised, posture rigid. His badge read Daniel Reeves. Young enough to still wear confidence like armor. Old enough to know better. Several shoppers paused mid-step. Heads turned. The woman by the carts pointed without hesitation. "That's him," she said. "I told dispatch he was putting that baby into the car." Marcus kept his voice even. "Officer, that's my son." Reeves didn't slow down. "I need you to step back from the vehicle now." Noah began to fuss inside the car, sensing the tension adults always pretend children cannot feel. Marcus glanced at the rear window, then back at the officer. "He's scared," Marcus said. "Let me calm him down, and I'll answer whatever you need." Reeves moved between Marcus and the door. "You can answer right now." "Name?" "Marcus Ellington." "Relationship to the child?" The parking lot had grown quiet in that particular American way, where strangers become an audience before they become witnesses. Marcus noticed 2 teenagers filming from beside a pickup truck. An older man shook his head, but said nothing. A mother pulled her daughter closer. Marcus straightened, not in defiance, but in dignity. "I am his father," he said. Reeves looked toward the woman who called, then back at Marcus. "Do you have proof of that?" Noah cried louder now, small hands pressing against the straps. Marcus felt something deeper than anger rise in his chest. Not rage, not fear, something older. The exhaustion of being asked to prove love on demand. He looked at Officer Reeves carefully, then at the name stitched across the uniform. And in a voice so calm it unsettled everyone nearby, Marcus said, "Officer Reeves, aren't you scheduled to appear in my courtroom next Tuesday?" The wind seemed to stop. Even Noah fell quiet for a moment, his small cries fading into soft hiccups from the back seat. Officer Daniel Reeves did not answer right away. The certainty he had arrived with slipped from his face so quickly that several people in the parking lot noticed it before he did. He blinked once, then looked again at the man standing in front of him, as if a second glance might change what he had just heard. "What did you say?" Reeves asked, though the question sounded weaker now. Marcus Ellington did not raise his voice. He did not step forward. He simply reached into the inside pocket of his coat and removed a slim leather wallet. From it, he drew a state identification card and held it where the officer could read it. The gold seal caught the evening light. Family Court Division. Judge Marcus A. Ellington. Reeves stared at the card, then at Marcus, then back to the card again. Around them, silence spread through the lot like a tide. The two teenagers who had been filming lowered their phones only slightly, sensing the story had changed but not yet knowing how far. The woman near the cart returned shifted her weight and suddenly became very interested in the groceries in her trunk. Marcus returned the card to his wallet with the same care he had used to buckle his son into the seat. "My son is cold," he said, and frightened. "I would like to comfort him now." Reeves stepped aside without speaking. Marcus opened the rear door, leaned in, and placed a gentle hand on Noah's chest. "It is all right, buddy," he whispered. "You are safe." The baby reached for his father's finger and gripped it with complete trust. That simple gesture landed harder than any accusation could have. Reeves cleared his throat. "Sir, I was responding to a report. I had to investigate." Marcus kept his eyes on Noah while adjusting the child's blanket. "Investigate what?" he asked calmly. "A father loading a stroller?" Reeves glanced toward the woman who had made the call, but she was already backing away, avoiding every eye around her. "There was concern for the child," he said. Marcus closed the car door softly and turned back. "Concern is asking if someone needs help," he replied. "Assumption is arriving with commands." The older man near the pickup truck nodded under his breath. A mother standing nearby tightened her hand around her daughter's fingers and looked at Marcus with quiet respect. Reeves shifted uncomfortably. His radio crackled at his shoulder, but he ignored it. "I did not know who you were." Marcus gave a tired smile, the kind that carried no joy in it. "That is exactly the point, Officer Reeves. You should not need to know who I am before deciding how to treat me." The words hung there, undeniable and clean. Reeves looked down at the pavement. For the first time since stepping out of his cruiser, he seemed aware of the people watching him. Not admiring, not fearing, watching. Marcus checked his watch. "You have a review hearing next Tuesday at 9:30, he said. "Child support enforcement." "I remember the file now." Reeves' head snapped up. Recognition met embarrassment in a collision no training manual could prepare him for. "Your Honor, Today I am not Your Honor," Marcus said gently. "Today I am just a father trying to get his son home before dinner." Noah let out a tiny laugh from inside the car, as if on cue. Several people smiled despite themselves. The tension broke, but the lesson remained. Marcus opened the driver's door, then paused. "When you wear that badge," he said, "people meet the system before they meet you. Make sure they meet your character first." He got into the SUV, started the engine, and pulled away slowly. In the mirror, he could still see Reeves standing alone under the parking lot lights, no longer guarded by authority, only surrounded by the echo of what he had chosen. The drive home was only 12 minutes, but it felt longer. Streetlights passed across the windshield in steady intervals, painting brief bands of gold over Marcus Ellington's face before disappearing into the dark. Noah had fallen asleep halfway there, his stuffed giraffe resting against his cheek, one tiny hand still curled around the blanket. The radio remained off. Some silences were peaceful. Others carried weight. This one carried memory. Marcus turned into the driveway of a modest brick home on Willow Crest Lane and parked beneath the porch light. Inside, the kitchen lamp was already glowing warm through the front window. He could see movement near the stove. Elena was home. He lifted Noah carefully from the car seat, balancing the diaper bag over one shoulder, then nudged the front door open with his foot. The smell of roasted chicken and rosemary met him first. Then came Elena's voice from the kitchen. "You are late, counselor." She stepped into the hallway, drying her hands on a dish towel, smiling until she saw his expression. "Marcus." He handed her the sleeping baby and exhaled for what felt like the first time all evening. "Parking lot incident," he said quietly. Elena's smile faded. She had known him long enough to hear everything hidden inside 2 words. She kissed Noah's forehead and carried him toward the nursery while Marcus set the stroller by the wall. The house was still, except for the soft ticking of the hallway clock and the distant hum of the dishwasher. He loosened his tie and sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing for a moment. When Elena returned, she placed a mug of tea in front of him without asking if he wanted one. "Tell me." Marcus explained it plainly. No drama. No exaggeration. A woman who assumed. An officer who arrived ready to command. A child frightened. A father required to prove himself before being allowed to comfort his own son. Elena listened with her arms folded, the way she did when trying not to let anger speak first. "And if you were not a judge?" she asked. Marcus looked into the steam rising from his cup. "Then it would have ended differently." Neither of them said more for a moment because some truths need room after they enter a room. Elena sat across from him. "Do you remember what happened to your father at the hardware store?" Marcus nodded immediately. He had been 9 years old. His father had stood in line holding a receipt and a box of nails while an employee asked 3 times whether he had paid. No apology ever came. Only a manager saying, "We are just being careful." Marcus had watched his father smile politely all the way to the truck, then sit behind the wheel for a full minute before starting the engine. "I remember," Marcus said. "I remember thinking grown men were not supposed to look tired like that." Elena reached across the table and covered his hand. "That is why what you do matters." Marcus gave a small laugh. "Today what I did was buy formula and survive a parking lot." "No," she said. "Today you showed Noah how dignity sounds." Upstairs, a faint cry came through the baby monitor, followed by a rustle and then silence again. Marcus looked toward the stairs. "He is too young to remember any of it." Elena shook her head. "Children remember how safety feels, even before they remember words." Later that night, after dinner dishes were stacked and the house had settled into darkness, Marcus stood alone in Noah's room. Moonlight touched the crib rail. His son slept on his back, peaceful and unaware of the world waiting outside childhood. Marcus placed a hand on the rail and thought about courtrooms, parking lots, traffic stops, school offices, and every ordinary place where respect could be given freely but often was not. He knew next Tuesday Officer Reeves would stand before the bench in a different setting, under different rules. But tonight Marcus was not thinking about judgment. He was thinking about inheritance. What gets passed down? Fear or wisdom? Suspicion or grace? He looked at his son and whispered the promise every good parent makes in one form or another. "I cannot choose the world you enter, but I can choose the man who prepares you for it." Tuesday morning arrived with a gray sky and the kind of cold rain that made the courthouse steps shine like stone glass. People moved quickly through the front entrance with collars raised and coffee cups in hand, each carrying a private worry hidden beneath ordinary routines. Inside the family court building, fluorescent lights hummed over polished floors, clerks organized files behind counters, and security bins filled with keys, phones, and umbrellas. To most, it was just another government morning. To others, it was the place where life could change before lunch. Marcus Ellington entered through the judge's corridor carrying a leather briefcase and a stack of case summaries. He greeted the bailiff by name, nodded to a clerk whose daughter had just started college, and paused to ask whether the janitor's knee was healing. Respect, he believed, was not a speech. It was a habit. In chambers, he removed his coat, hung it carefully, and reviewed the docket one final time. Custody modifications, emergency support enforcement, mediation failures, missed visitation disputes, cases built not from villains and heroes, but from fatigue, fear, and unfinished conversations. Near the bottom of the list was a familiar name. Daniel Reeves. Compliance review regarding unpaid child support and repeated failure to appear for mediation. Marcus read the file without emotion. He had done this work too long to confuse surprise with significance. Still, the memory of a parking lot and a frightened child crossed his mind like a shadow. He set it aside. At 9:25, the courtroom doors opened. Families took their seats in rows of wooden benches. Attorneys arranged folders. A toddler colored on the floor with one broken crayon, while his grandmother whispered warnings no child ever hears. At 9:30 sharp, the clerk called the room to order. Marcus entered in his robe, and everyone rose. From the second row, Officer Reeves stood with the rest. He looked different without the cruiser, the radio, the badge on display. Authority can change shape quickly when it no longer belongs to you. Marcus took his seat behind the bench. His face revealed nothing beyond professionalism. "Good morning," he said. "Please be seated." Cases moved steadily. He listened more than he spoke. He asked precise questions. He redirected anger into facts, excuses into timelines, confusion into next steps. When people expected judgment, he offered structure. When they expected indifference, he offered attention. By the time the clerk called Reeves' matter, the room had grown quieter, sensing something unsaid in the air. Daniel Reeves approached the table with his attorney, shoulders tense, jaw set. Across from him sat Maya Reeves, the child's mother, composed but tired in the way only years of carrying too much can make a person look. Marcus glanced at the file, then up at both parties. "We are here regarding compliance with prior orders," he said evenly. "This court is concerned with responsibility, consistency, and the welfare of the child. Nothing else." Reeves swallowed hard. For the first time, he did not interrupt. He did not command. He simply nodded. Marcus asked about payment history, missed exchanges, schedule conflicts, and communication records. Facts answered where pride could not. Maya spoke softly but clearly. Reeves answered in shorter sentences than the man from the parking lot ever would have used. At one point, their eyes met. Reeves looked away first. The courtroom noticed. Marcus made notes, then folded his hands. "Mr. Reeves," he said, "children do not measure love by promises. They measure it by presence." The words landed gently, but they landed. Maya lowered her eyes. Reeves stared at the table. Marcus continued. "This court can order money. It can enforce calendars. It cannot create character. That remains your task." No one moved. Even the toddler with the broken crayon had gone still. Marcus reviewed a revised compliance plan, mandatory co-parenting sessions, and a clear visitation schedule designed around the child rather than the adults. Fair, firm, forward-looking. He signed the order and handed it to the clerk. Then, with the same calm voice he used for every person before him, Marcus added, "How you treat people when you feel powerful often predicts how you will behave when your child is watching. Consider that carefully, Mr. Reeves." The courtroom emptied in waves of footsteps, whispers, and the rustle of winter coats. Cases had been heard, orders signed, futures adjusted by inches. That was often how real change arrived in family court, not with dramatic speeches or sudden miracles, but through small corrections repeated over time. Marcus Ellington remained on the bench for a moment after the last matter was called, reviewing notes while the clerk stacked files beside him. Across the room, Maya Reeves gathered her papers slowly, as if she did not trust good news until it had fully settled. Daniel Reeves stood near counsel table, hands at his sides, no longer shielded by procedure or posture. He looked like many men Marcus had seen before, not evil, not helpless, simply confronted by the cost of habits he once called normal. When the room was nearly empty, Reeves approached the bench rail. He waited until the bailiff gave a slight nod. "Your Honor," he said quietly. Marcus looked up. "This matter is concluded, Mr. Reeves." Reeves swallowed. "I know. This is personal." Marcus considered him for a second, then removed his reading glasses. "Be careful with that word in this building," he said. "Most harm begins when adults make their personal feelings a child's burden." Reeves lowered his eyes. The rain tapped softly against the tall courthouse windows. Somewhere in the hallway, a copy machine whirred to life. Ordinary sounds returning after uncomfortable truths. "I was wrong the other night," Reeves said. "In the parking lot." Marcus said nothing. Silence can be more honest than interruption. Reeves continued. "I came in assuming the worst. I did not see a father. I saw something else." He struggled to finish the sentence because prejudice often sounds strongest before reflection and weakest after it. Marcus folded his hands. "You saw what you were prepared to see." Reeves nodded once. "Yes, sir." "And today?" Marcus asked. Reeves looked around the courtroom, now nearly empty except for rows of benches and the seal of the state above the bench. "Today I saw how a man carries authority without using it to humiliate people." Marcus studied him carefully. Regret was common in courtrooms. Transformation was rarer. "Apologies matter," Marcus said, "but patterns matter more." Reeves took a breath. "I understand." "Do you?" Marcus asked, not sharply, but precisely. "Because if you understand, then your child will notice the difference before anyone else does." The words struck deeper than punishment could have. Reeves straightened, then nodded again, slower this time. "I missed birthdays," he said. "Canceled weekends. Told myself work came first because I was doing something important." Marcus glanced toward the signed order on the clerk's desk. "Many people use duty to avoid intimacy," he said. "It sounds noble. It often is not." Reeves gave a faint, embarrassed laugh at the truth of it. "What do I do now?" he asked. Marcus looked toward the gallery doors where Maya had just exited, carrying the revised parenting plan. "You arrive on time. You keep your word. You learn your child's favorite cereal. You ask about homework even when the answer is boring. You become reliable in small ways until trust grows back in large ones." Reeves listened like a man hearing instructions for something harder than policing. "And at work?" he asked after a moment. Marcus placed his glasses back on. Meet people before your assumptions do. The bailiff stepped forward, signaling the schedule was moving on. Marcus gathered the next file. That will be all, Mr. Reeves. Reeves turned to leave, then stopped. Judge Ellington. Marcus looked up once more. Thank you for not using what happened against me. Marcus' expression remained calm. I did use it, he said. I used it to remind you what power is for. Reeves stood still, absorbing the sentence, then walked out into the hallway where parents, children, lawyers, and strangers crossed paths under fluorescent lights. Marcus opened the next case file, but for a moment he watched the door close behind him. Justice, he knew, was not always the fall of a man. Sometimes it was the rebuilding of one. 3 weeks later, the city had traded rain for clear winter sunlight. Bare tree branches lined the streets like dark ink against a pale sky, and every storefront window seemed to glow a little brighter in the cold. On Saturday morning, Brookhaven Community Center was louder than any courtroom Marcus Ellington had entered that month. Children raced through the gym in sneakers that squeaked across polished wood. Parents balanced paper coffee cups, diaper bags, and schedules that never quite fit together. A handmade banner stretched above the entrance to the multipurpose room, Father and Child Reading Day. Marcus stood near a table stacked with picture books, Noah on his hip, and a knit cap slipping sideways over one ear. The boy pointed at everything with serious curiosity, then laughed whenever Marcus named it. Book, Marcus said. Chair. Balloon. Very expensive balloon. Noah clapped as if language itself were magic. Elena signed families in at the front desk, moving with the cheerful efficiency of someone who could organize joy into neat columns if needed. She glanced over at Marcus and smiled. You look underqualified for balloon security, she called. I am doing my best with limited resources, he replied. The room filled steadily. Fathers arrived in work boots, business coats, sweatshirts, uniforms, and clothes chosen in the dark by exhausted men. Trying anyway. Some came confidently. Others hovered near the doorway, unsure whether they belonged in spaces labeled nurturing. Marcus knew that look too. Many men had been praised for providing and never taught how to simply be present. He welcomed each one the same way. No speeches, no assumptions, just names, handshakes, and chairs pulled into circles. At 10:15, the side door opened again. Daniel Reeves stepped inside holding the hand of a little girl with a pink backpack nearly half her size. She could not have been older than 6. Her hair was tied in uneven pigtails that suggested sincere effort rather than skill. Reeves wore jeans, a plain jacket, and the cautious expression of a man entering somewhere he once would have dismissed. The girl looked up at him. Daddy, is this the place? She asked. Yes, Emma, he said softly. This is the place. Marcus saw them before Reeves saw him. For a moment, he considered walking over immediately, then chose patience instead. Change often needs room to walk in on its own. Reeves noticed him seconds later and stopped short. Emma tugged his hand. Come on. Marcus crossed the room with Noah in his arms. Reeves straightened instinctively, then seemed to remember there was no bench here, no badge, no distance to stand behind. Judge Ellington, he said. Marcus smiled slightly. Today it is Marcus. He looked down at the child. And you must be Emma. She nodded with the seriousness of children meeting adults who use their full names. I like your hat, Marcus told her. It had cartoon stars stitched across the front. Thank you, she said, immediately trusting him for that reason alone. Reeves cleared his throat. I have had every visit on time, he said quietly, as if offering evidence before being asked. We made pancakes last weekend. Burned the first batch. Marcus glanced at Emma. How were the second batch? Better, she said. He used less smoke. Marcus laughed, and even Reeves did too. It sounded unfamiliar on him, but honest. Elena approached with a stack of books and handed Emma one about a bear who could not sleep in winter. Reading circle starts in 5 minutes, she said. Emma hurried toward the rug. With the other children. Reeves watched her go, the way parents do when joy still surprises them. I wanted to thank you, he said. I almost did not come. Marcus shifted Noah higher on his shoulder. Many fathers mistake discomfort for danger, he said. They are not the same. Reeves nodded slowly. I am learning that. Across the room, Emma waved impatiently for him to join her. Reeves looked at Marcus once more. I am trying to be different. Marcus followed his gaze toward the little girl waiting on the rug. Then do not announce it, he said. Let her experience it. Reeves walked over and sat cross-legged beside his daughter, awkward at first, then steady. Emma leaned against his arm without hesitation. Marcus watched the scene in the bright noise of the community center and felt something rare and quiet settle in the room. Sometimes the strongest proof a person has changed is not what they say to the world. It is how safely a child sits beside them. By early spring, the city had softened. Snow was gone, trees were beginning to green, and sunlight stayed longer on the sidewalks each evening. At Brookhaven Elementary, the parking lot filled with minivans, pickup trucks, and parents checking watches as they hurried toward the front doors. It was career day, the annual parade of uniforms, business cards, and children discovering that adults had lives beyond making dinner and saying no. Inside the cafeteria, folding chairs faced a small stage decorated with construction paper stars and hand-painted signs that leaned slightly to one side. Teachers moved through the room with clipboards and practiced smiles. Marcus Ellington arrived carrying Noah on one arm and a garment bag on the other. Elena met him near the entrance, already helping arrange name tags for volunteers. "You are late by 47 seconds, she said. "I blame traffic and tiny socks," Marcus replied. Noah, now old enough to object loudly to hats, tossed one to the floor for emphasis. Across the room, Emma Reeves sat with her first-grade class, knees swinging beneath a folding chair. The moment she spotted Marcus, she raised both hands as if voting for joy itself. "Judge Marcus," she shouted. Before her teacher could stop her, several heads turned. Marcus smiled and walked over. "Good morning, Ms. Reeves," he said. Emma leaned close and whispered loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "My dad packed my lunch with the grapes, not touching the crackers." "That is advanced parenting," Marcus said solemnly. Emma nodded. "He is getting better." At the back of the cafeteria, Daniel Reeves entered carrying a poster board covered in photos of patrol cars, safety cones, and one badly cropped picture of Emma holding a bicycle helmet. He looked less guarded than the man from Winter, though some habits still sat on his shoulders like old coats. When he saw Marcus speaking with Emma, he hesitated only a second before walking over. "Morning," Reeves said. "Morning," Marcus answered. Reeves held up the poster board. "She made me redo it twice because the glitter was crooked." Emma corrected him immediately. 3 times. Reeves accepted the ruling. 3 times. The principal tapped the microphone, producing the usual burst of feedback that makes every adult flinch. Children laughed. Presentations began. A firefighter spoke about teamwork. A nurse explained thermometers and kindness. A mechanic held up a wrench like treasure. Then Officer Reeves was called. He stepped onto the small stage, glanced at the rows of children, and for a brief second looked more nervous than he ever had in court. Emma gave him 2 thumbs up from the front row. He exhaled and began. He talked about helping people when they are lost, directing traffic in storms, finding missing pets, and the importance of staying calm when others cannot. He did not glorify power. He described service. When one boy asked if police get to boss everyone around, Reeves smiled faintly. "No," he said. "The best officers remember they work for everyone." Marcus noticed several teachers exchange surprised looks. Truth sounds different when it is earned. Afterward, children lined up to see the patrol car parked outside. Emma ran straight to Marcus. "Did you hear him?" she asked. "I did," Marcus said. "He was brave." "Why brave?" she asked. Marcus crouched to her level. "Because sometimes it is harder to become better than it is to stay the same." She considered this with the seriousness children give to new ideas. Outside in the warm breeze, Reeves stood beside the cruiser helping children try the radio microphone one at a time. He caught Marcus watching and walked over during a lull. "I requested community outreach duty," Reeves said. "Fewer complaints. More conversations." Marcus nodded. "That sounds useful." Reeves looked toward Emma laughing near the cones. "I used to think respect came from control." He paused. "Turns out it comes from consistency." Marcus glanced at Noah chewing thoughtfully on a cracker from his stroller. Children teach that faster than courts do. The dismissal bell rang, and the parking lot began filling with motion again. Parents gathered backpacks, teachers waved goodbye, children ran toward the people who showed up for them. Emma grabbed her father's hand without hesitation and pulled him toward the exit. Reeves looked back once, offering Marcus a grateful nod before following her into the sunlight. Marcus watched them go and felt the quiet satisfaction that rarely makes headlines. Sometimes justice does not arrive as punishment. Sometimes it arrives as a child no longer waiting alone. Summer settled over Brookhaven with long evenings, open windows, and the distant sound of lawn mowers that seemed to start before sunrise and stop after dark. On Maple Street, children drew chalk galaxies across sidewalks while neighbors watered flower beds and traded updates over fences as if front yards were their own small newspapers. Marcus Ellington stood in his driveway rinsing juice boxes from a cooler after a neighborhood picnic, Noah nearby in a plastic wagon wearing sunglasses too large for his face. Elena sat on the porch steps sorting paper plates into a trash bag and pretending not to notice that Noah kept stealing napkins one by one. "Your son is building a criminal record," she said. "Then I trust he will receive fair representation," Marcus answered. 2 houses down, a patrol cruiser rolled slowly to the curb. It was clean, polished, and moving at the cautious pace officers use when they know everyone is watching. Daniel Reeves stepped out, carrying a rectangular box wrapped in bright cartoon paper. Emma followed close behind with a sunflower tucked behind one ear and the confidence of a child who assumes every arrival is welcome until proven otherwise. Several neighbors looked up from their yards. Old impressions can linger in a community long after people begin changing. Reeves walked up the driveway, stopping a respectful distance away. "Afternoon," he said. Marcus set the cooler down. "Officer Reeves." Emma frowned immediately. He said not to call him officer when he is off work. She informed everyone. Reeves sighed. "Thank you, Emma." Marcus smiled. "Then Daniel it is." Emma marched forward and presented the wrapped box to Noah with both hands. "For your birthday," she declared. Noah stared at the package as if considering whether paper itself was the gift. Elena came down the steps laughing softly. "That is very kind," she said. "Come sit with us." Reeves hesitated only a moment before joining them on the porch. The neighborhood resumed breathing. Sometimes acceptance begins when people witness ordinary things. Emma helped Noah tear the paper away in wild, uneven strips. Inside was a wooden shape-sorting toy painted in bright colors. Noah immediately tried to chew the triangle piece, which everyone agreed was age-appropriate. "Good choice," Marcus said. Reeves nodded toward Emma. "She picked it." "I picked the fun one," Emma corrected. "He picked the educational one." Elena handed out lemonade in mismatched cups. The evening lights softened across the street, turning parked cars gold around the edges. Children chased fireflies in the yards. A radio somewhere played old soul music low enough to feel more than hear. Reeves sat with both elbows on his knees, watching Emma show Noah how blocks fit into holes he had no intention of using correctly. "Internal review closed last month," Reeves said quietly. Marcus looked over. "And mandatory training. Community assignment extended. Recommendation from my captain said I changed course." He shrugged. "Fair enough." Marcus nodded once. "Consequences are not always endings. Sometimes they are directions." Reeves considered that. "I used to think being corrected meant being attacked." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Many adults do." Emma, hearing none of the adult layers, held up the square block triumphantly because Noah had finally dropped it into the correct opening. Everyone applauded as if witnessing engineering history. Reeves smiled without guarding it. "Maya noticed," he said after a moment. "Said I listen now instead of waiting to speak." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "That may be the rarest skill in America." They laughed, and this time the laughter belonged to all of them. A breeze moved through the trees, carrying cut grass and charcoal smoke from somewhere nearby. Across the street, an older neighbor who had once watched the parking lot video online raised a hand in greeting to Reeves. He returned it. "Small things. Real things." Noah toddled unsteadily toward Marcus, clutching the triangle block like treasure. Marcus lifted him into his lap. Emma sat beside them and began explaining rules to a game no one else understood. Reeves watched his daughter with the expression of a man who had almost missed years he now intended to keep. As dusk settled over Maple Street, porch lights blinked on one by one. Marcus looked at the people around him and thought about how quickly strangers can become symbols, and how slowly symbols become human again. The law could order distance or structure, deadlines or payments. But only humility could reopen a front porch. Autumn returned quietly, the way wisdom often does. Leaves gathered along curbs in amber lines. Mornings carried a sharper chill, and the courthouse maples outside Family Court had turned the color of old copper. Inside Judge Marcus Ellington's chambers, the first hearing of the day had not yet begun. The building was still in that brief hour when hallways belong to janitors, clerks, and people who know how much work happens before the public arrives. Marcus stood by the window adjusting his tie while Noah, now walking with determined instability, pushed a toy truck across the rug and narrated every crash in a language only toddlers speak fluently. Elena sat in a chair near the desk reviewing volunteer schedules for a holiday food drive. "He gets your focus," she said, watching Noah attempt to park the truck beneath a bookcase. "And your parking skills," Marcus replied. A knock sounded at the door. The clerk opened it slightly. "Judge, there is someone asking if he may leave this for you." Before Marcus could answer, Emma Reeves appeared in the doorway holding a large envelope decorated with stickers, followed by Daniel Reeves carrying a bakery box and wearing the careful smile of a man who still respected thresholds. "We were in the building for final review," Reeves said. "Thought we would stop by if that was all right." Marcus glanced at the clock, then at Emma. "You have exactly 6 minutes before I become busy and important." Emma took this seriously and hurried in. She placed the envelope on the desk with ceremony. "It is a thank you card," she announced. "I wrote most of it myself." Noah approached her immediately, fascinated by the stickers. Elena rescued the envelope before diplomacy failed. Reeves set the bakery box beside it. "Blueberry muffins," he said. "Store-bought. I know my limits." Marcus motioned for them to sit. The room felt smaller than a courtroom and warmer for it. Through the open door, clerks passed with files, phones rang somewhere down the hall, and the machinery of justice prepared for another day. Yet inside chambers, there was only coffee, children, and the rare sight of people who had once met through conflict now meeting through gratitude. "Today was the last compliance review," Reeves said. "All requirements completed. Support current. Parenting schedule stable." He looked toward Emma, who was helping Noah place stickers on the wrong surfaces. Maya agreed to shared holiday planning. Elena smiled. "That sounds like peace with paperwork." Reeves laughed softly. "Closest thing I know." Marcus opened the card. Inside, in large, uneven letters, Emma had written, "Thank you for helping my dad learn stuff." Beneath it was a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands beside what might have been a courthouse or a toaster. Marcus studied it with full seriousness. "This belongs in a frame," he said. Emma beamed. Reeves lowered his eyes for a moment, then spoke quietly. "I used to think. That day in the parking lot was the worst embarrassment of my life." Marcus looked up. Reeves continued, "Now I know it was the beginning of the best correction of my life." No one rushed to fill the silence that followed. Some truths deserve room to stand on their own. Marcus closed the card carefully. "Most people pray for change," he said. "Few recognize it when it arrives wearing discomfort." Reeves nodded. "I almost fought every lesson." "Many do," Marcus said. "That is why humility is expensive." Noah toddled over and offered Emma 1/2 of a broken crayon. She accepted it like treasure. Elena glanced at the children and then at the men in the room. "Looks like the next generation is negotiating already." The clerk reappeared at the door. "Judge, first case is ready." Marcus stood and reached for his robe. Reeves rose as well. Emma hugged Elena, then surprised Marcus by hugging his leg with the absolute confidence children reserve for safe people. He rested a hand gently on her shoulder. "Take care of your father," he said. "I am trying," she whispered. They stepped into the hallway and disappeared into the movement of the day. Marcus put on his robe, picked up the thank you card, and tucked it inside the top drawer of his desk. Then he walked toward the bench where strangers would arrive carrying anger, fear, hope, and unfinished stories. Outside, leaves kept falling. Inside, justice waited not to punish who people had been, but to make room for who they might still become.